When dealing with powers of I, you can see a pattern as you write them out. So if we start with I to the 0, it's 1, I to the first is I squared is -1, I cubed is -I to the fourth is 1, I to the fifth is I to the sixth is -1, I to the seventh is -I to the eighth is 1, I to the ninth is I to the 10th is -1, I to the 11th is -I, and so on and so on. We can see that it's just the same 4 answers repeating over and over again. So we know from this that there are only 4 possible answers when evaluating higher powers of I. It's either going to be 1, I, -1, or -I as your answer. So how do we figure out what the answer is? What's the easiest way to do it? Well, I think the easiest way to simplify I to a power is to do these steps. First, just divide the exponent by 4. Whatever it is, divide by 4. Once you do that, you're going to get some number, but you don't care what that number is. You are only concerned with what the remainder is. And your remainder is either going to be 0, 1, 2, or 3. Now, once you have your remainder, you're going to look at the first column of I, this one right here, and you're going to take your remainder, and that is going to be the exponent of I, 0, 1, 2, or 3. Whichever one it is, that's what your answer is. So if it's your remainder of 0, your answer is 1. Remainder of 1, it's I. Remainder of 2, -1. Remainder of 3, -I. So let's go and try some of this out. So we have I to the 15th. So all we're going to do is we're going to take 4 and divide it into 15. So when we do that, 4 is going to go into 15 3 times with a remainder of 3. So that's all we want, is just the remainder. So we know that 3 is our remainder, so we're going to be focused on this one right here. I cubed is equal to -1. So I to the 15th is going to be equal to I cubed, which is equal to -I. And there's your answer. Next, we're going to do I to the 72nd power. So again, 4 into 72. So 4 will go into 72 18 times. So, which is just actually going to be perfectly straight into it. So we're going to have a remainder of 0. So remember, since our remainder is 0, we're going to be focused on just this one here. So I to the 0 equals 1. So I to the 72nd power is going to be equal to I to the 0, which is equal to 1. So our answer here is just 1. Next we have I to the 153rd power. So again, we're just going to take 153 and we're going to divide it by 4. So 4 is going to go to 153 38 times, which won't be perfectly even, but pretty close. So subtracting, we're going to get 1, and again, we're only focused on the remainder of 1. So up here, remainder of 1, I to the first, which is equal to I. So I to the 153rd is equal to I to the first, which is just equal to I. So our answer here is just I. Now the last one, I to the -45th power, this is a weird one because we have a negative number. So what would this one be? Well, we don't like negative exponents, so let's just actually get rid of the negative exponent. So we're going to call it 1 over I to the 45th. Now, since I to the 45th is positive, let's just work on that for now. So 4 into 45. So 4 will go into 45 11 times with a remainder of 1. And again, a remainder of 1 is just going to be I, we have that right here. So we can say instead of 1 over I to the 45th, we can just say 1 over I. Now again, this doesn't help us because we don't want a fraction. So what we're going to do, multiply by the conjugate. So multiply by negative I. So up top, we're going to get negative I, and in the bottom, we're going to get negative I squared. And don't forget, if you have, I squared is equal to negative 1. So when simplifying this down, we're going to have negative I up top and negative 1 in the bottom. And when we do that, we're going to get negative I up top and a positive 1 in the bottom, which is just going to give us negative I. So I to the negative 45th power is all equal to negative I.